Hello, friends. It has been forever since we've read, and I literally just woke up. I went to bed super late last night, and I was like, okay, we're going to do this. I'm so sorry that it's been a while. I meant to read on Monday, and then I meant to read on Sunday, and then realized I had a client on Monday. I thought it was Tuesday. So then Monday I had a client, and I didn't get to hop on. So it's Tuesday, and here we are. We are on day 135, I think we're supposed to be, and we haven't read since day 131, so we've got a while to go. So we're going to start in 2 Samuel. We're reading 2 Samuel 10, and we're going to be jumping around a little bit. So if you want to follow along with me, that's where we're going to start. Otherwise, I can just tell you where we are, because we've got a lot to read, so I'm just going to keep knocking it out. So hope you guys had a fantastic Christmas. Thank you for being with me, and here we go. All right, so 2 Samuel 10. Sometime after this, King Nahash of the Ammonites died, and his son Hanun became king. David said, I'm going to show complete loyalty to Hanun because of his father Nahash was always completely loyal to me. So David sent ambassadors to express sympathy to Hanun about his father's death. But when David's ambassadors arrived in the land of Ammon, Hanun's advisors said to their master, Do you really think these men are coming here to honor your father? No, David has sent them to spy on the city so they can come in and conquer it. So Hanun seized David's ambassadors and shaved off half of each man's beard, cut off their robes at the buttocks, and sent them back to David in shame. When David heard what had happened, he sent messengers to tell the men to stay at Jericho until their beards grew out, for they were very embarrassed by their appearance. Aww. Now the people of Ammon realized how seriously they had angered David, and they hired 20,000 Aramean mercenaries from the land of Beth Rahab and Zobah, 1,000 from the king of Maacah, and 12,000 from the land of Tob. When David heard about this, he sent Joab and the entire Israelite army to fight them. The Ammonite troops drew up their battle lines at the entrance to the city gates, where the Arameans from Zobah and Rehab and the men from Tob and Maacah had positioned themselves to fight in the open fields. When Joab saw that he would have to fight on two fronts, he chose the best troops in his army. He placed them under his personal command and led them out to fight the Arameans in the field. He left the rest of the army under the command of his brother Abishai, who was to attack the Ammonites. If the Arameans are too strong for me, then come over and help me, Joab told his brother. And if the Ammonites are too strong for you, I'll come and help you. Be courageous. Let us fight bravely to save our people and the cities of our God. May the Lord's will be done. When Joab and his troops attacked, the Arameans began to run away. And when the Ammonites saw the Arameans running, they ran from Abishai and retreated into the city. After the battle was over, Joab returned to Jerusalem. The Arameans now realized that they were no match for Israel. When they regrouped, they were joined by additional Aramean troops summoned by Hadadezer from the other side of the Euphrates River, and these troops arrived at Hilam under the command of Shobach, the commander of all of Hadadezer's forces. When David heard what was happening, he mobilized all of Israel, crossed the Jordan River, and led the army to Hilam. The Arameans positioned themselves there in battle formation and then attacked David. But again, the Arameans fled from the Israelites. This time, David's forces killed 700 charioteers and 40,000 horsemen, including Shobach, the commander of their army. When Hadadezer and his Aramean allies realized they had been defeated, they surrendered to them and became their subjects. After that, the Arameans were afraid to help the Ammonites. Gee, you think? I think I would be too. Okay, now let's read 1 Chronicles 19, which I think is going to be a lot like what we just read. Yep, David defeats the Ammonites. Okay, so here it is from a different perspective. Sometime after this, King Nahash of the Ammonites died, and his son Hanun became king. David said, I'm going to show complete loyalty to Hanun because of his father Nahash was always completely loyal to me. So David sent ambassadors to express sympathy about his father's death. But when David's ambassadors arrived in the land of Ammon, Hanun's advisors said, Do you really think these men are coming to honor your father? No. David sent them to spy on the land so they can come in and conquer it. So Hanun seized David's ambassadors, shaved their beards, cut their robes at the butt, and sent them back to David in shame. When David heard this, he sent messengers to tell them to stay at Jericho because they were very embarrassed. Now the people of Ammon realized how seriously they had angered David, so Hanun and the Ammonites sent 38 tons of silver to hire chariots and troops from Aram, Naharaim, Aram, Maacah, and Zobah. They also hired 32,000 chariots and secured the support of the king of Maacah and his army. These forces camped at Medeba, where they were joined by the Ammonite troops that Hanun had recruited from his own towns. When David heard about this, he sent Joab and all his warriors to fight them. The Ammonite troops drew up their battle lines at the gate of the city, while the other king positioned themselves to fight in the open fields. When Joab saw that he'd have to fight on two fronts, he chose the best troops in his army and placed them under his personal command and led them out to fight the Arameans in the field. He left the rest of the army under the command of his brother Abishai, who was to attack the Ammonites. "If the Arameans are too strong for me, come and help me," Joab told his brother, "and if the Ammonites are too strong for you, I will help you. Be courageous. Let us fight bravely to save our people and the cities of our God, and may the Lord's will be done." When Joab and his troops attacked, the Arameans began to run away. And when the Ammonites saw the Arameans running, they ran from Abishai and retreated into the city. And then Joab returned to Jerusalem. The Arameans now realized they were no match for Israel, so they summoned additional troops from the other side of the Euphrates River. These troops arrived under the command of Shobach, the commander of all of Hadadezer's forces. When David heard what was happening, he mobilized all of Israel, crossed the Jordan River, and positioned his troops in battle formation. Then he engaged the enemy troops in battle, and they fought against him. But again, the Arameans fled from the Israelites, and this time David's forces killed 7,000 charioteers and 40,000 foot soldiers. That was more than the other person said, including Shobach, the commander of their army. When the servants of Hadadezer realized they had been defeated, they surrendered and became David's subjects. And after that, the Arameans were no longer willing to help the Ammonites. At least I got that part in there again. All right, Psalm 20. For in times of trouble may the Lord respond to your cry. May the God of Israel keep you safe from all harm. May he send you help from his sanctuary and strengthen you from Jerusalem. May he remember all of your gifts and look favorably on your burnt offerings. May he grant your heart's desire and fulfill your plans. May we shout for joy when we hear of your victory, flying banners to honor our God. May the Lord answer all of your prayers. Now I know the Lord saves his anointed king, and he will answer him from his holy heaven and rescue him by his great power. Some nations boast of their armies and weapons, but we boast in the Lord our God. Those nations will fall down and collapse, and we will rise up and stand firm. Give victory to our King, O Lord. Respond to our cry for help. Okay, that was day 131. So now we're reading Psalms 65 to 67. Right? 65 to 67. Okay, so here we go. Psalm 65. What mighty praise, O God, belongs to you in Zion. We will fulfill our vows to you, for you answer our prayers, and to you all people will come. Though our hearts are filled with sin, you forgive them all. What joy for those you choose to bring near, those who live in your holy courts. What joy awaits us inside your holy temple. You faithfully answer our prayers with awesome deeds, O God, our Savior. You are the hope of everyone on earth, even those who sail on distant seas. You formed the mountains by your power and armed yourself with mighty strength. You quieted the raging oceans with their pounding waves and silenced the shouting of the nations. Those who live at the ends of the earth stand in awe of your wonders. From where the sun rises to where it sets, you inspire shouts of joy. You take care of the earth and water it, making it rich and fertile. The rivers of God will not run dry, and they provide a beautiful, bountiful harvest of grain, for you have ordered it so. You drench the plowed earth with rain, melting the clods and leveling the ridges. You soften the earth with showers and bless its abundant crops. You crown the year with a bountiful harvest, and even the hard pathways overflow with abundance. The wilderness becomes a lush pasture, and the hillsides blossom with joy. The meadows are clothed with flocks of sheep, and the valleys are carpeted with grain, and they all shout and sing for joy. 66. Shout joyful praises to God, all the earth. Sing about the glory of his name. Tell the world how glorious he is, and say to God, how awesome are your deeds. Your enemies cringe before your mighty power, and everyone on earth will worship you. They will sing your praises, shouting your name in glorious songs. Come and see what our God has done, what awesome miracles he does for his people. He made a dry path through the Red Sea, and his people went across on foot. Come, let us rejoice in who he is, for by his great power he rules forever. He watches every movement of the nations. Let no rebel rise in defiance. Let the whole world bless our God and sing aloud his praises. Our lives are in his hands, and he keeps our feet from stumbling. You have tested us, O God. You have purified us like silver melted in a crucible. You've captured us in your net and laid the burden of slavery on our backs. You sent troops to ride across our broken bodies, and we went through fire and blood, but you brought us to a place of great abundance. Now I come for your temple with burnt offerings to fulfill the vows I made to you. Yes, the sacred vows you heard me make when I was in deep trouble. That is why I'm sacrificing burnt offerings to you. The best of my rams is a pleasing aroma, and I will sacrifice bulls and goats. Come and listen, all you who fear God, and I will tell you what he did for me. For I cried out to him for help, praising him as I spoke. If I had not confessed the sin in my heart, my Lord would not have listened. But God did listen. He paid attention to my prayer. Praise God who did not ignore my prayer and did not withdraw his unfailing love for me. 67. May God be merciful and bless us. May his face shine with favor upon us. May your ways be known throughout the earth, your saving power among people everywhere. May the nations praise you, O God. Yes, may the nations praise you. How glad the nations will be, singing for joy, because you govern them with justice and direct the actions of the whole world. May the nations praise you, O God. May the nations praise you. Then the earth will yield its harvest, O God, our God, will richly bless us. Yes, God will bless us, and people all over the world will fear him. All right, Psalm 69 and 70. Save me, O God, for the flood. Whoa, jeez. Save me, O God, for the floodwaters are up to my neck. Deeper and deeper I sink into the mire, and I can't find a foothold to stand on. I'm in deep water, and the floods overwhelm me. I'm exhausted from crying for help, and my throat is parched and dry. My eyes are swollen with weeping, waiting for my God to help me. Those who hate me without cause are more numerous than the hairs on my head. The enemies who seek to destroy me are doing so without cause. They attack me with lies, demanding I give back what I didn't steal. Oh God, you know how foolish I am. My sins cannot be hidden from you. Don't let those who trust in you stumble because of me, O sovereign Lord Almighty. Don't let them cause me to be humiliated, O God of Israel. For I am mocked and shamed for your sake, and humiliation is written all over my face. Even my brothers pretend they don't know me, and they treat me like a stranger. Passion for your house burns within me, and those who insult you are also insulting me. So I weep and fast before the Lord, and they scoff at me. When I dress in sackcloth to show sorrow, they make fun of me. I'm the favorite topic of town gossip, and all the drunkards sing about me. But I keep on praying right to you, Lord, hoping this time you'll show me favor. In your unfailing love, O God, answer my prayer with your pure salvation. Pull me out of the mud and don't let me sink any deeper. Rescue me from those who hate me and pull me from these deep waters. Don't let the floods overwhelm me, or the deep waters swallow me, or the pit of death devour me. Answer my prayers, O Lord, for your unfailing love is wonderful. Turn and take care of me, for your mercy is plentiful. Don't hide from your servant. Answer me quickly, for I am in deep trouble. Come and rescue me and free me from my enemies. You know all the insults I endure, the humiliation and disgrace. You've seen all my enemies and know what they have said. Their insults have broken my heart, and I am in despair. If only one person would show pity, if only one person would turn and comfort me. But instead they give me poison for food and offer me sour wine to satisfy my thirst. Let the bountiful table set before them become a snare. Let their security become a trap. Let their eyes go blind so they cannot see, and their bodies grow weaker and weaker. Pour out your fury on them, consume them with your burning anger. May their homes become desolate and their tents be deserted. To those you have punished, they add insult to injury. They scoff at the pain of those you have hurt. Pile their sins up high and don't let them go. Erase their names from the book of life and don't let them be counted among the righteous. I am suffering and in pain. Rescue me, O God, by your saving power. Then I will praise God's name with singing. I will honor him with thanksgiving. For this will please the Lord more than sacrificing an ox or presenting a bull with its horns and hoofs. The humble will seek their God at work and be glad. Let all who seek God's help live in joy. For the Lord hears the cries of the needy ones. He does not despise people who are oppressed. Praise him, O heaven and earth, the seas and all that move in them. For God will save Jerusalem and rebuild the towns of Judah. His people will live there and take possession of the land. And the descendants of those who obey him will inherit that land, and those who love him will live there in safety. All right, 70. Please, God, rescue me. Come quickly, Lord, and help me. May those who try to destroy me be humiliated and put to shame. May those who take delight in my trouble be turned back in disgrace. Let them be horrified by their shame, for they said, "Aha, we've got him now." But may all who search for you be filled with joy and gladness. May those who love your salvation repeatedly shout, "God is great." But I am poor and needy. Please hurry to my aid, O God. You are my helper and my Savior. O Lord, do not delay. Okay, hold on. I dropped the thing. That's not going to help us very much if I don't know what we're reading. Okay, so that was the wrong side. Okay. That was day 132. So we read Psalms 65 to 67 and 69 and 70. Now we're going back to 2 Samuel. Sorry. And we're reading 2 Samuel 11 and 12. All right. Okay. 2 Samuel 11 into, oh, this is a good story. Okay, David and Bathsheba. Isn't it interesting how some of these stories you've heard from like the time that you were little in church and other ones you have never heard of in your life? Yeah, I know this one. Okay. Well, that's good. Oh, no, that's terrible. I have not seen the new Spider-Man. Thanks for ruining that for me. Okay, so 2 Samuel chapter 11. The following spring, the time of year when kings go to war, David sent Joab and his Israelite army to destroy the Ammonites. In the process, they laid siege to the city of Rabbah, but David stayed behind in Jerusalem. Late one afternoon, David got out of bed after taking a nap and went for a stroll on the roof of the palace. As he looked over the city, he noticed a woman of unusual beauty taking a bath. He sent someone to find out who she was, and he was told, "She is Bathsheba, the daughter of Eliam and the wife of Uriah the Hittite." Then David sent for her, and when she came to the palace, he slept with her. She had just completed the purification rites after having her menstrual period. Thanks for that clarification. Then she returned home. Later, when Bathsheba discovered she was pregnant, she sent a message to inform David. So David sent word to Joab, "Send me Uriah the Hittite." When Uriah arrived, David asked him how Joab and his army were getting along and how the war was progressing. Then he told Uriah, "Go on home and relax." David even sent a gift to Uriah after he left the palace, but Uriah wouldn't go home. He stayed that night at the palace entrance with some of the king's other servants. When David heard what Uriah had done, he summoned him and asked, "What's the matter with you? Why didn't you go home last night after being away for so long?" And Uriah replied, "The ark and the armies of Israel and Judah are living in tents, and Joab and his officers are camping in open fields. How could I go home and wine and dine and sleep with my wife? I swear I will never be guilty of acting like that." "Well, stay here tonight," David told him, "and tomorrow you can return to the army." So Uriah stayed in Jerusalem that day and the next, and then David invited him to dinner and got him drunk. But even then, he couldn't get Uriah to go home to his wife, and again he slept at the palace entrance. Interesting. So the next morning, David wrote a letter to Joab and gave it to Uriah to deliver. The letter instructed Joab, "Station Uriah on the front lines where the battle is fiercest, and then pull back so he'll be killed." Okay, so he didn't just send him to the front lines, station him there, and then pull back so he'll be killed. Like, that was literally a death threat, not just like, go ahead and send him to the front. So he sent Uriah close to the city wall where he knew the enemy's strongest men were fighting, and Uriah was killed along with several other soldiers. Then Joab sent a battle report to David, and he told his messenger, "Report all the news of the battle to the king." But he might get angry and ask, "Why did the troops go so close to the city? Didn't they know they'd be shooting from the walls? Wasn't Gideon's son Abimelech killed at Thebez by a woman who threw a millstone on him?" Aw. And then they tell him Uriah the Hittite was killed too. So the messenger went to Jerusalem and gave a complete report to David. "The enemy came out against us," he said. "We chased them back to the city gates, where the archers on the wall shot at us. Some of our men were killed, including Uriah the Hittite." "Well, tell Joab not to be discouraged," David said. "The sword kills one as well as the other. Fight harder next time and conquer the city." When Bathsheba heard her husband was dead, she mourned for him, and when the period of mourning was over, David sent for her and brought her to the palace, and she became one of his wives. Then she gave birth to a son, but the Lord was very displeased with what David had done. The Lord sent Nathan the prophet to tell David this story. There were 2 men in a certain town, and one was rich and one was poor. One had but a little lamb, and one owned many sheep and cattle. The one raised that little lamb, and it grew up with his children. It ate from the man's own plate and drank from his cup. He cuddled it in his arms like a baby daughter. And one day a guest arrived at his home with a rich man. But instead of killing a lamb from his own flock, he took the poor man's lamb and killed it and served it to his guest. David was furious. As surely as the Lord lives, he vowed, any man who would do such a thing deserves to die. He must repay 4 lambs to the poor man for the one he stole for having no pity. Then Nathan said to David, "You are that man. The Lord, the God of Israel, says, I anointed you king of Israel and saved you from the power of Saul. I gave you his house and his wives and the kingdoms of Israel and Judah. And if that had not been enough, I have given you much, much more. Why then have you despised the word of the Lord and done this horrible deed? For you have murdered Uriah and stolen his wife. From this time on, the sword will be a constant threat to your family, because you despised me by taking Uriah's wife to be your own. Because of what you've done, I, the Lord, will cause your own household to rebel against you. I will give your wives to other man, and he will go to bed with them in public view. You did it secretly, but I will do this to you openly in the sight of all of Israel." Wow. Then David confessed to Nathan, "I have sinned against the Lord." And Nathan replied, "Yes, but the Lord has forgiven you. You won't die for the sin. But you've given the enemies of the Lord great opportunity to despise and blaspheme him, so your child will die." After Nathan returned to his home, the Lord made Bathsheba's baby deathly ill. David begged God to spare the child, and he went without food and lay all night on the bare ground. The leaders of the nation pleaded with him to get up and eat with them, but he refused. Then on the 7th day, the baby died. David's advisors were afraid to tell him. He was so broken up about the baby being sick, they said. What will he do to himself when we tell him the child is dead? When David saw them whispering, he realized what had happened. Is the baby dead? He asked. Yes, they replied. So David got up from the ground, washed himself, put on lotion, and changed his clothes. Then he went to the tabernacle and worshipped the Lord. And after that, he returned to the palace and ate. His advisors were amazed. We don't understand you, they told him. When the baby was living, you wept and refused to eat. But now that the baby is dead, you've stopped your mourning and are eating again. David replied, I fasted and wept while the child was alive, for I said, perhaps the Lord will be gracious to me and let the child live. But why should I fast when he is dead? Can I bring him back again? I will go to him one day, but he cannot return to me. Then David comforted Bathsheba, his wife, and slept with her, because every grieving widow wants you to come and sleep with them. She became pregnant and gave birth to a son, and they named him Solomon. The Lord loved the child and sent word through Nathan the prophet that his name should be Jedediah, beloved of the Lord, because the Lord loved him. Meanwhile, Joab and the Israelite army were successfully ending their siege of Rabbah, the capital of Ammon. Joab sent messengers to tell David, I have fought against Rabbah and captured its water supply. Now bring the rest of the army to finish the job, so you'll get credit for the victory instead of me. So David led the rest of his army to Rabbah and captured it, and removed the crown from the king's head, and it was placed on David's own head. The crown was made of gold and set with gems, and it weighed 75 pounds. The crown weighed 75 pounds. Can you imagine having a 75-pound thing on your head? David took a vast amount of plunder from the city, and also made slaves of the people of Rabbah, and forced them to labor with saws, picks, and axes, and to work in the brick kilns. This is how he dealt with all the people in the Ammonite cities. And then he returned to Jerusalem. Okay. All right, so that was 11 and 12. So now I have to go read 1 Chronicles 20, because it's going to be the same story. All right, hold on. Wow, I'm so sorry, guys. I've not been reading this. What? Whoa. What's the question it's impossible to answer yes to without lying? Are you asleep? There you go. That is a good riddle. I like it. All right, 1 Chronicles 20. What if you're like one of those people that sleepwalks or like is asleep but still can talk? Just saying. Okay, 1 Chronicles 20. The following spring, the time of year when kings go to war, Joab led the Israelite army in successful attacks against the towns and villages of the Ammonites. In the process, they laid siege to the city of Rabbah and destroyed it, but David had stayed behind in Jerusalem. When David arrived at Rabbah, he removed the crown from the king's head, and it was placed on David's own head. The crown was made of gold and set with gems, and it weighed about 75 pounds. David took a vast amount of plunder from the city, and he also made slaves of the people of Rabbah and forced them to labor with saws, picks, and axes. This is how he dealt with the people of the Ammonite cities, and then David returned to Jerusalem. That's crazy. They just skipped that whole thing about Bathsheba. After this, war broke out with the Philistines at Gezer, and as they fought, Sibbecai from Hushna killed Saph, a descendant of the giants, so the Philistines were subdued. During another battle with the Philistines, Elhanan, son of Jair, killed Lami, the brother of Goliath of Gath. The handle of Lami's spear was as thick as a weaver's beam. In another battle with the Philistines, a huge man with 6 fingers, sounds Princess Bride to me, on each hand and 6 toes on each foot, a descendant of the giants, defied and taunted Israel. But he was killed by Jonathan, the son of David's brother Shimeah. The Philistines were descendants of the giants of Gath, but they were still killed by David and his warriors. All right, Psalm 32 is where we are going. All right. Psalm 32. All right, we're reading 32 and then we're skipping to 51. Okay. Oh, what joy for the... I just dropped the top of my pen. Oh, what joy for those whose rebellion is forgiven, whose sin is put out of sight. Yes, what joy for those who record the Lord as cleared of sin, whose lives are lived in complete honesty. When I refuse to confess my sin, I am weak and miserable, and I groan all day long. Day and night your hand of discipline are heavy on me. My strength evaporates like water in the summer heat. Finally, I will confess all my sin to you and stop trying to hide them. And I said to myself, I will confess my rebellion to the Lord, and you forgave me. My guilt is gone. Therefore, let all the godly confess their rebellion to you while there is time, so they may not drown in the floodwaters of judgment. For you are my hiding place, and you protect me from trouble. You surround me with songs of victory. Then the Lord says, I will guide you along the best pathway for your life, and I will advise you and watch over you. Don't be like a senseless horse or a mule that needs bit and bridle to keep it under control. Many sorrows come to the wicked, but unfailing love surrounds those who trust the Lord. So rejoice in the Lord and be glad. This is the song, and be glad in it. Shout for joy, all of those whose hearts are pure. I think that what I just realized is that sorry, this was a thing for the Bible thing was like folded, and I knew that I was trying to save something, but I couldn't figure out what. Okay, what I just realized was, you know how I've been like, why are we skipping around? Well, I think that the reason is that the Bible Psalms are grouped by what they're written about, not when they were written. Because that one was similar to another one that it was next to. So I think that's the deal. So we're jumping around because we're jumping around to when they were written, not what they're about. Interesting, right? Okay, so now we're going to 51. Okay. Have mercy on me, O God, because of your unfailing love. Because of your great compassion, blot out the stain of my sin. Wash me clean from my guilt and purify me from my sin. For I recognize my shameful deeds, and they haunt me day and night. Against you and you alone I have sinned. I've done what is evil in your sight. You'll be proved right in what you say, for your judgment against me is just. For I was born a sinner from the moment my mother conceived me, but you desire honesty from the heart, and you can teach me to be wise in my inmost being. Purify me from my sins, and I'll be clean. Wash me, and I'll be whiter than snow. Oh, give me back my joy again. You have broken me, and let me rejoice. Don't keep looking at my sin. Remove the stain of my guilt. Create in me a clean heart, O God. Renew a right spirit within me. Seriously, every time that I get to one that's a song, I can't help but sing it. Restore to me again the joy of your salvation, and make me willing to obey you. Then I will teach your ways to sinners, and they will return to you. Forgive me for shedding blood, O God who saves, and then I will joyfully sing of your forgiveness. Unseal my lips, O Lord, that I may praise you. You would not be pleased with sacrifices, or I would bring them. If I brought you a burnt offering, you would not accept it. The sacrifice you want is a broken spirit, a broken and repentant heart, O God, and you will not despise. Look with favor on Zion and help her. Rebuild the walls of Jerusalem. Then you'll be pleased with the worthy sacrifices and with our whole burnt offerings, and bulls will be again sacrificed on your altar. All right, 86. When I was younger, we were at church one day and bored out of our minds, and we found a hymn book, and we were reading through it, me and my friend, trying to figure out how many of the songs we could just sing. And it's crazy when you grow up in church how many of them are just in there. You know, like you can just start singing all of a sudden, just saying the words, and I feel like that's what I keep doing. All right, Psalm 86. Bend down, O Lord, and hear my prayer. Answer me, for I need your help. Protect me, for I'm devoted to you. Save me, for I serve you and trust you, and you are my God. Be merciful, O Lord, for I'm calling on you constantly. Excuse me, I'm so sorry. That soda is very fizzy. Give me happiness, O Lord, for my life depends on you. You are so good, so ready to forgive, so full of unfailing love for those who ask your aid. Listen closely to my prayer, O Lord, and hear my urgent cry. I will call to you whenever trouble strikes, and you will answer me. Nowhere among the pagan gods is there a God like you, O Lord. There are no other miracles like yours. All the nations, and you made each one, will come and bow before you, Lord. They will praise your great and holy name. For you are great and perform miracles. You alone are God. Teach me your ways, O Lord, that I may live according to your truth. Grant me purity of heart, that I may honor you. With all my heart I will praise you, O Lord my God, and I will give glory to your name forever. For your love for me is very great. You have rescued me from the depths of death. O God, insolent people rise up against me, and violent people are trying to kill me, and you mean nothing to them. But you, O Lord, are merciful and gracious God, slow to get angry, full of unfailing love and truth. Look down and have mercy on me. Give strength to your servant. Yes, save me, for I am your servant. Send me a sign of your favor, and those who hate me will be put to shame. For you, O Lord, help and comfort me. All right, last one for this is Psalm 122. Okay. I was glad when they said to me, let us go to the house of the Lord. And now we are standing here inside your gates, O Jerusalem. Jerusalem is a well-built city, knit together as a single unit. And all the people of Israel, the Lord's people, made their pilgrimage here. They come to give thanks to the Lord as the law requires. And here stands the throne where judgment is given, the throne of the dynasty of David. Pray for the peace of Jerusalem, and may all who live in this city prosper. O Jerusalem, may there be peace within your walls and prosperity in your palaces. For the sake of my family and friends, I will say, peace be with you. For the sake of the house of the Lord our God, I will seek what is best for you, O Jerusalem. Okay, so the last thing that we're going to read is 2 Samuel, 13 to 15. That's kind of a lot. All right, last one. Okay. So, 2 Samuel 13. David's son, Absalom, had a beautiful sister named Tamar, and Amnon, her half-brother, fell desperately in love with her. So David's son had a sister. So wouldn't that mean that was David's daughter? And then her half-brother would also be David's kid, right? Amnon became so obsessed with Tamar that he became ill. She was a virgin, and it seemed impossible that he could ever fulfill his love for her. Now Amnon had a very crafty friend, his cousin, Jonadab. He was the son of David's brother, Shimeah. One day, Jonadab said to Amnon, "What's the trouble? Why should the son of a king look so dejected morning after morning?" And Amnon told him, "I'm in love with Tamar, Absalom's sister." "Well," Jonadab said, "I'll tell you what to do. Go back to bed and pretend you're sick. When your father comes to see you, ask him to let Tamar come and prepare some food for you. Tell him you'll feel better if she feeds you." So Amnon pretended to be sick, and when the king came to see him, Amnon said, "Please let Tamar come to take care of me and cook something for me to eat." So David agreed and sent Tamar to Amnon's house to prepare some food for him. When Tamar arrived at Amnon's house, she went into the room where he was lying down so he could watch her mix some dough. What? You're going to see a sick person, and you're going to go into the room where he's lying down to mix dough. Not the kitchen, the room where he's lying down. So, into his bedroom. You're just going to stand there and mix some dough. Then she baked special bread for him, and when she set the serving tray before him, he refused to eat. "Everyone get out of here," he told his servants, so they all left. And then he said to Tamar, "Now bring the food into my bedroom and feed it to me there." So she took it to him. But as she was feeding him, he grabbed her and demanded, "Come to bed with me, my darling sister." "No, my brother," she cried, "don't be foolish. Don't do this to me. You know what a serious crime it is to do such a thing in Israel. Where could I go in my shame? And you'd be called one of the greatest fools in Israel. Please just speak to the king about it, and he'll let you marry me." But Amnon wouldn't listen to her, and since he was stronger than she was, he raped her. Then suddenly, Amnon's love turned to hate, and he hated her even more than he had loved her. "Get out of here," he snarled at her. "No, no," Tamar cried. "To reject me now is a greater wrong than what you've already done to me." But Amnon wouldn't listen to her. He shouted for his servant and demanded, "Throw this woman out and lock the door behind her." So the servant put her out. She was wearing a long, beautiful robe, as was the custom in those days for the king's virgin daughters. But now Tamar tore her robe and put ashes on her head, and then with her face in her hands she went away crying. When her brother Absalom saw her, he asked, "Is it true that Amnon has been with you? Don't be so upset. Since he's your brother, don't worry about it." So Tamar lived as a desolate woman in Absalom's house. When King David heard what had happened, he was very angry, and although Absalom never spoke to Amnon about it, he hated Amnon deeply because of what he had done to his sister. 2 years later, when Absalom's sheep were being sheared at Baal-hazor near Ephraim, Absalom invited all the king's sons to come to a feast. He went to the king and said, "My sheep shearers are now at work. Would the king and his servants please come and celebrate this occasion with me?" The king said, "No, my son. If we all came, it would be too much of a burden on you." Absalom pressed him, and the king wouldn't come, though he sent his thanks. "Well then," Absalom said, "if you can't come, how about sending my brother Amnon instead?" "Why Amnon?" the king asked, but Absalom kept pressing the king until he finally agreed to let all of his sons attend, including Amnon. Absalom told his men, "Wait until Amnon gets drunk, and then at my signal, kill him. Don't be afraid, I'm the one who's given the command. Take courage and do it." So at Absalom's signal, they murdered Amnon. Then the other sons of the king jumped on their mules and fled. As they were on their way back to Jerusalem, the report reached David, "Absalom has killed all of your sons, and not one is left alive." The king jumped up, tore his robe, and fell prostrate on the ground. His advisors also tore their clothes in horror and sorrow. But just then Jonadab, the son of David's brother Shimeah, arrived and said, "Not all of your sons have been killed. It was only Amnon. Absalom has been plotting this ever since Amnon raped his sister Tamar. Your sons are not dead, only Amnon." Meanwhile, Absalom escaped. Then the watchman on the Jerusalem wall saw a great crowd coming toward the city from the west. He ran to tell the king, "I see a crowd of people coming from Horonim Road along the side of the hill." "Look," Jonadab told the king, "there they are now. Your sons are coming, just as I said." They soon arrived, weeping and sobbing, and the king and his officials wept bitterly with them. David mourned many days for his son Amnon. Absalom fled to his grandfather, Talmai, son of Ahimedad, the king of Geshur. He stayed there in Geshur for 3 years. And David, now reconciled to Amnon's death, longed to be reunited with his son Absalom. 13 to 15. Oh, we have more. Okay, there's more to read. Okay, this is crazy. Joab realized how much the king longed to see Absalom, and he sent for a woman from Tekoa who had a reputation for great wisdom. He said to her, "Pretend you're in mourning, wear mourning clothes, and don't bathe or wear perfume. Act like a woman who's been in deep sorrow for a long time, and then go to the king and tell him the story I'm about to tell you." And Joab told her what to say. When the woman approached the king, she fell with her face to the floor in front of him and cried out, "O king, help me." "What's the trouble?" the king asked. "I'm a widow," she replied. "My 2 sons had a fight out in the field, and since there was no one there to stop it, one of them was killed. Now the rest of the family is demanding, 'Let us have your son. We'll execute him for murdering his brother. He doesn't deserve to inherit his father's property. But if I do that, I'll have no one left, and my husband's name and family will disappear from the face of the earth.' 'Leave it to me,' the king told her. 'Go home, and I'll see that no one touches him.' 'Oh, thank you, my lord,' she replied, 'and I'll take the responsibility if you're criticized for helping me like this.' 'Don't worry about that,' the king said. 'If anyone objects, bring them to me. I can assure you they'll never complain again.' Then she said, 'Please swear to me by the Lord your God that you won't let anyone take vengeance against my son. I want no more bloodshed.' 'As surely as the Lord lives,' he replied, 'not a hair on your son's head will be disturbed.' 'Please let me ask one more thing of you,' she said. 'Go ahead,' he urged, 'speak.' She replied, 'Why don't you do as much for the people of God as you have promised to do for me? You've convicted yourself in making this decision because you refused to bring home your own banished son. All of us must die eventually. Our lives are like water spilled out onto the ground, which cannot be gathered up again. That is why God tries to bring back what we've been separated from him. But he does not sweep away the lives of those he cares about, and neither should you. I've come to plead with you for my son because my life and my son's life have been threatened. I said to myself, perhaps the king will listen to me and rescue us from those who would cut us off from God's people. Yes, the king will give us peace of mind again. I know that you're like an angel of God and can discern good from evil. May the Lord your God be with you.' 'I want to know one thing,' the king replied. 'Yes, my lord?' she asked. 'Did Joab send you here?' And the woman replied, my lord the king, how can I deny it? Nobody can hide anything from you. Yes, Joab sent me and told me what to say. He did it to place the matter before you in a different light. But you are as wise as an angel of God, so you understand everything that happens among us.' So the king sent for Joab and told him, 'All right, go back and bring the young man Absalom.' Joab fell to the ground before the king, blessed him, and said, 'At least I know that I've gained your approval, for you have granted me this request.' Then Joab went to Geshur and brought Absalom back to Jerusalem, but the king gave this order: 'Absalom may go to his own house, but he must never come to my presence.' So Absalom did not see the king. No one in Israel was as handsome as Absalom. From head to foot, he was the perfect specimen of a man. He cut his hair only once a year, and then only because it was too heavy to carry around. When he weighed it out, it came to 5 pounds. So he was like Fabio. He had 3 sons and 1 daughter, and his daughter's name was Tamar, and she was very beautiful. Absalom lived in Jerusalem for 2 years without getting to see the king. Then Absalom sent for Joab to ask him to intercede for him, but Joab refused to come. Absalom sent for him a second time, but again Joab refused to come. So Absalom said to his servants, 'Go and set fire to Joab's barley field, the field next to mine.' So they set the field on fire as Absalom had commanded. Then Joab came and demanded, 'Why did your servants set my field on fire?' And Absalom replied, 'Because I wanted you to ask the king why he brought me back from Geshur if he didn't intend to see me. I might as well have stayed there. Let me see the king, and if he finds me guilty, then let him execute me.' So Joab told the king what Absalom had said, and at last David summoned his estranged son. Absalom came and bowed low before the king, and David kissed him." This is a very interesting story. All right, last chapter for the day. After this, Absalom brought a chariot and horses and hired 50 footmen to run ahead of him. He got up early every morning and went to the gate of the city. And when the people brought a case for the king to judgment, Absalom would ask where they were from, and they would tell him their tribe. Then he would say, "You've got a really strong case here. It's too bad the king doesn't have anyone to hear it. If I were the judge, the people would bring their problems to me, and I would give them justice." Then when the people tried to bow before him, he wouldn't let them. Instead, he took them by the hand and embraced them. And in this way, he stole the hearts of all the people of Israel. After 4 years, he said to the king, "Let me go to Hebron to offer a sacrifice to the Lord in fulfillment of a vow I made to him. For when I was at Geshur, I promised to sacrifice to him in Hebron if he would bring me back to Jerusalem." "All right," the king told him, "go and fulfill your vow." So Absalom went to Hebron, but while he was there, he sent secret messengers to every part of Israel to stir up a rebellion against the king. "As soon as you hear the trumpets," the message read, "you will know that Absalom has been crowned king in Hebron." He took 200 men from Jerusalem with him as guests, but they knew nothing of his intentions. While he was offering the sacrifices, he sent for Ahithophel, one of David's counselors who lived in Gilo. Soon many others also joined Absalom, and the conspiracy gained momentum. A messenger soon arrived in Jerusalem to tell King David, "All of Israel has joined Absalom in a conspiracy against you." "Then we must flee at once or it will be too late," David urged his men. "Hurry. If we get out of the city before he arrives, both we and Jerusalem will be spared from disaster." "We are with you," his advisors replied. "Do what you think is best." So the king and his household set out at once. He left no one behind except 10 of his concubines to keep the palace in order. The king and his people set out on foot, and they paused at the edge of the city to let David's troops move past to lead the way. There were 600 Gittites who had come with David from Gath, along with the king's bodyguard. The king turned to Ittai, the captain of the Gittites, and asked, "Why are you coming with us? Go back with your men to King Absalom, for you are a guest in Israel, a foreigner in exile. You arrived only yesterday, and now I should force you to wander with us? I don't even know where we'll go. Go on back and take your troops with you, and may the Lord show you his unfailing love and faithfulness." But Ittai said to the king, "I vow by the Lord and by your own life, I will go wherever you go, no matter what happens, whether it means life or death." David said, "All right, come with us." So Ittai and his 600 men and their families went along. There was a deep sadness throughout the land as the king and his followers passed by. They crossed the Kidron Valley and then went towards the wilderness. Abiathar and Zadok and the Levites took the Ark of the Covenant of God and set it down beside the road. Then they offered sacrifices there every day until everyone had passed by. David instructed Zadok to take the Ark of God back to the city. "If the Lord sees fit," David said, "he'll bring me back to see the Ark in the tabernacle again. But if he's through with me, let him do what he deems best to him." Then the king told Zadok the priest, "Look, here's my plan. You and Abiathar should return quietly to the city with your son Ahimaaz and Abiathar's son Jonathan. I will stop at the shallows of the Jordan River and wait there for a message from you. Let me know what happens in Jerusalem before I disappear into the wilderness." So Zadok and Abiathar took the Ark of God back to the city and stayed there. David walked up the road that led to the Mount of Olives, weeping as he went. His head was covered and his feet were bare as a sign of mourning. And the people who were with him covered their heads and wept as they climbed the mountain. When someone told David that his advisor, Ahithophel, was now backing Absalom, David prayed, "O Lord, let Ahithophel give Absalom foolish advice." As they reached the spot at the top of Mount Olives where people worshiped God, David found Hushai the Archite waiting for him. Hushai had torn his clothing and put dirt on his head as a sign of mourning. But David told him, "If you go with me, you'll only be a burden. Return to Jerusalem and tell Absalom, I will now be your advisor, as I was your father's advisor in the past. Then you can frustrate and counter Ahithophel's, advice." Zadok and Abiathar are the priests there. Tell them the plans we made to capture me, and they will send their sons Ahimaaz and Jonathan to find me and tell me what's going on. So David's friend Hushai returned to Jerusalem, getting there just as Absalom arrived. Well, that's crazy. So because of what David did with Bathsheba, this whole thing is happening, right? Because of what you've done, I, the Lord, will cause your own household to rebel against you. I will give your wives to another man, and he'll go to bed with them in public. Interesting. I will cause your own household to rebel against you. I would say that's what's going on. His sin is creating a rebellion. Yikes. All right, that was a lot today, guys. Thank you for sticking with me. Thank you for being here. I'm so sorry that we had so much to read. Hopefully we're not going to be such slackers and we won't have to do that again. I hope that you have a great Tuesday, and I will see you soon. Bye.